What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Sheehan Show here on Sherdog.com. My name is Sean Sheehan, and today we're going to be looking ahead to Bellator 284, headlined by the welterweight clash between Neiman Gracie and Goiti Yamauchi. This card goes down in the Sanford Pentagon in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, over in the beautiful United States of America on August 12th. I will be honest, this is not the best card that Bellator have put on recently, or that they will put on, because they have a great card coming up here in beautiful Ireland in a couple of weeks' time, which I will be at, and that is a fantastic card. So maybe because that's so fantastic, maybe this isn't as good, and I will absolutely take that, because I would rather be at the great one than watching it at home. I'm actually going to be at a wedding that night as well, so I'm not even going to see this card, but I've written it here, but I will obviously see it back afterwards. But look, there are some highlights throughout the card. It's not a total write-off, and I suppose I have a little bit of a soft spot these days for Bellator and PFL, doing the previews of both of the cards, and I enjoy what they put on. I enjoy seeing the way they move and seeing the way they do things. And there's one great thing in this card. I'll wait till I get to the actual fight before I discuss it. But something that Bellator do you know what? I'll discuss it now. Screw it. Right. So Valentin Moldavsky is fighting here. And he's fighting against Steve Mowry. And I will break down that fight in a minute, right? But his last fight against Ryan Bader, for the title, he was the champion and he obviously lost. But he's coming back. He's not getting an immediate title match, and he's fighting against Steve Mowry. AJ McKee, last time out, he lost to, obviously, Patricia Pitbull. He's moving up to lightweight now. He's not getting an immediate shot there either against Patricky. He's fighting, who's he fighting? I can't remember who he's fighting. Obviously, we'll talk about that in a couple of weeks as well on that very good card. I think the same card as Patricia. But I love that. I think that is really, really good, because in the UFC recently, we've had too many straight rematches. We've had too much, overbearing kind of undeserved rematches, I suppose. And I think Bellator, with those two decisions, maybe I haven't gone back and looked at everything. Maybe I'm overreacting a little bit, but it does seem like in Bellator, right, you lose a title fight, and if it makes sense, and I know Patricio got one straight away, but he was like one of their biggest stars and long-time champion, so you can understand that maybe a little bit more. But if it doesn't immediately make sense, or if they can avoid it, I think they will. And it's not necessarily always trying to push for it, or even one fight and get straight back. I feel like these lads have to work their way back a little bit, which is interesting considering Bellator don't obviously have as many fighters as the UFC, as many maybe top people in the title mix as the UFC in lots of different divisions, but yet they can do it. Now, maybe I've hit the nail on the head there in terms of why they can do it, because they have less people up there at the top of those divisions. And that, it's easier for the matchmakers over in Bellator. I don't. Who's even the matchmaker in Bellator now? I'm not sure. Rich Chow's gone. Have they ever really said who is the matchmaker? I know Jude Samuel does the matchmaking around here, but maybe it's just Scott Coker himself or whatever. But anyway, I think that's good. I love that. I love it. Right. I remember last year talking about Justin Gaethje and saying, right, why is he getting, he gets one fight and gets back to the title. And I love Justin Gaethje. He's a great fighter, and every time he's in a big fight, it's a great fight. So that's probably the reason. But I remember someone saying to me, what's Justin Gaethje supposed to do, go to the back of the line because he lost one fight? And I'm like, how about he goes to third in line? Fight number 2, fight number 1 in the rankings, and then fight for the title. How about 2 fights to get back, or 3 fights to get back in a division like that in the UFC where lightweight is so great? I feel like Bellator are doing that a little bit more, even in the Bellator heavyweight division. It's not the best division in the world, but the former champion is coming in here and he's, going to fight one of the top up-and-coming contenders. Obviously, we'll get to the fight in a second, but I really like that. I like that Bellator are doing that, and they're doing that on this card, and I will give massive props to them. I will absolutely give massive props to them for that. Anyway, that was one thing that I've just been thinking for the last couple of days since I saw this fight was on this card and saw the AJ McKee news as well. I think that's great. I think it's really, really good. Let's get into this card. And look, it's an interesting card without a shadow of a doubt. As always, whenever I come on these previews, I tell you there are some good up-and-comers, usually American wrestlers that have been signed by Bellator, and then you have maybe the top guys maybe have a title fight up at the top. No title fight here, and maybe that's why the card isn't maybe as good at the top. We still have some good, up-and-comers on the card. Who's Sullivan, Cauley, who's now 3-0. He's fighting a pretty experienced guy. Next up here, and Tyson Jeffries, who's 24 fights into his career. Cauley has had all 3 fights in Bellator. He beat Ben Parrish, who people remember last time out. And Tyson Jeffries, as I said, 14-10, which is okay. It's not the best record in the world, I suppose, fighting out of American top team in Portland, and he's lost his last couple of fights on King of the Cage. But he's beaten. He's beaten some guys down through the years, I suppose, with some records. He's fought a lot of guys with, records and things like that. So it's an experienced guy. It's a guy who's been in there a while. And, I suppose it's a good test. This is a boxing-ish type of matchup, I would suggest. But, probably a 15-0 boxing match type of test for Sullivan Cauley. So I think that's good. Isiah Hokit as well. He's 1-1 fighting Nick Perez. Brett Boy, I believe it's an amateur fight against Chris Bennett. So yeah. There's a couple more on Mitchell McKee, who's 2-0 fighting Tony Ortega. Bailey Schoenfelder is taking on Mark Currier. I know if I can give him my picks, it's pretty easy. All of them lads, all of the up and coming 2-0, 3-0, 4-0 wrestlers, I'd probably pick all of them to win. I think Jordan Newman might get the finish there again. And I think Sullivan Cauley might as well in this fight. I might go a little bit longer. Maybe he'll go get the decision there against someone like Jeffries, who's a lot of experience. One guy who I'm really looking forward to making his debut, and maybe I'm a little bit biased because I spoke to him last week in an interview, but Patrick Downey. Very interesting character. If you haven't checked out my interview with him, I'm sure it's up by the time this comes out. Please do. He's fighting Jeff Souder, and he is a wrestler that has had his ups and downs, I suppose. In college, he actually mentioned, I asked him about in the interview about those ups and downs in college, and he talked about, he got done for smoking weed and thrown off teams and not selected on teams. But from everything I kind of read about him, and from wrestlers speaking about it, there's no doubt in his talent. Maybe there's a question over him as a person in terms of doing the wrong thing, and he's living with even Luis Pena now, and we see the trouble he's got into over the last while. It's that will be the downfall of Patrick Downey if there is anything in it, but he definitely has the talent, and if he can get his life together and put it all together, this could be a guy who is a world level talent. But it takes more than talent, it takes everything to put it together. He grappled with Gordon Ryan. He beat him in a wrestling match in 35 seconds or something like that. And then it was kind of an injury that lost him a grappling match as well. So he could grapple, he could do it all. I asked him about he was training at Sanford MMA for a while, and now he's training with Luis Pena, and I asked him about his striking coach and stuff. He's like, Luis Pena is... So I don't know. I don't know how prepared he is. I don't know how seriously he's taking it. It's hard to tell with him, but one thing we do know is, I'll say it again, he's a top athlete, and he's an unbelievable wrestler. I don't know, people probably know better than me, but it seemed like he could have been an Olympic level wrestler if not for what had happened. Actually, funny enough, he was suggesting he comes over to Ireland here and wrestles on the Irish Olympic team, to which I was like, do you know what? Let's do that. If we could win a medal, I'll take it absolutely any day. His opponent, Jeff Souder, though, this guy's a good athlete as well. I believe he played on the Saints in the NFL. And I watched a couple of his amateur fights. He's actually 0-0 as well. He's a front choke in one of them. Nice stuff. He hits with power, and he seems to have good submissions, good wrestling and stuff. So his wrestling is not going to be on the level of Patrick Downey, I think, even though I think he was a good wrestler as well in high school anyway, but in college I think he did a bit of wrestling, if I'm not mistaken, in terms of Souder. So look, you would expect Patrick Downey to win that fight. 29 years of age now as well, so if he's going to climb, I think he needs to start that climb very, very quickly here. But this is one of those fights I'm excited about. The first result I'll probably check on with my hangover head after the wedding on Saturday morning is probably this fight, if I'm being honest. So really, really looking forward to that. Elsewhere, maybe on the undercard, it's interesting. Josh Hill is on this card as well. I think so. Josh Hill was supposed to fight Matos, and it looks like that fight has been changed out to Marcos Breno. So this was literally kind of changed as I was coming on here to record this. So let's see how that goes. Breno fought in LFA in his last fight, and he won a fight there. He's lost to Taylor Lapillus in Aries back in 2019 in their first card. So it's interesting. He's fighting out of Brazil, and he has a good bit of experience and all of that. Don't know too much about him. I'm not gonna lie, but you know, Josh Hill. We know a lot about Josh Hill. You know, been fighting for years. You know, I remember he fought Paddy Houlihan back in Tough back in the day. 35 years of age now. You know, he's been right thereabouts in that Bellator bantamweight division for the last while. You know, he fought is he the champion, interim champ? He's the interim champion. I think did Sergio give up the belt, or is he still? No, I think Rafael Stotts is the interim champ. He'd beaten Eric Perez and others as well. So you know, he actually fought Taylor Lapillus, funnily enough, and lost to him as well back in the day. Taylor Lapillus, where is Taylor Lapillus these days? Let's just have a look here. Let's just run through Sherdog. Why not in the middle of this thing? He's on a good run. Yeah, he's actually fighting in Aries as well. If you're not watching Aries are actually doing really, really good stuff. He fought Wilson Hayes a couple of fights ago and Nate Maness as well. So yeah, he's doing good stuff. But anyway, back to this preview. You know, we know what type of fighter Josh Hill is. He is well-rounded. He can kind of do it all. Not the biggest finisher in the world. I think 9 of his fights have finished inside the distance. 13 have gone to a decision. So, look, it'll be interesting to see. How it goes for him if he still has it at this age. I suppose 35 years of age. Fighting in the lighter weight divisions is not the easiest thing in the world to do. So we'll see how that goes for him. But you know, I like Josh Hill back in the day. He was a guy who had a couple of problems as well inside and outside of the cage, I believe. So you know, if he can put it all together, he's still a guy who is you know, a good fighter. And I think if I was to give my pick for that fight, I think he win that. So I'm going with Hokit, Hill, Newman, Cauley, Downey, Schoenfelder and Mitchell there on the undercard. Actually, the last prelim fight is the rematch between Justine, Kish and Deanna, Bennett. And last time I was talking on my PFL preview last week about a rematch, I gave the wrong winner of the rematch because I watched the whole fight. Well, it was the Martin Hamlet Hendricks fight, and I watched like 30 minutes of the fight. I was like, well, okay, I know what's happening here. It was kind of a one-sided domination. Turned it off. I was like, oh, he won, but he ended up losing that in like the 14 minute of the fight. And everyone in the comment section was like, oh god, he lost. What are you talking about? I was like, well, he was winning, to be fair. Anyway, this fight was won by Deanna Bennett. Was that right? Yeah, I actually went back and watched it very carefully. Watched the whole thing very carefully before this. Not so sure why they're doing the rematch. It was a good fight. Like it was a good fight. You know, it was interesting because Kish came into Bellator and she beat Ilima-Lei MacFarlane, and she had lost to Bennett before that. So I suppose the win over Ilima-Lei MacFarlane is maybe the reason she's getting it back. You know, okay, I answered maybe my own question there, but still in all, I don't think it was necessarily the type of fight that you need to do again, in that Bennett, like watching it back there, Bennett was landing the more powerful shots while Kish was winning on the feet. If that makes no sense, but it makes sense if you think about it. Like, so Kish was kind of wanting the fight to be in a certain position, but when it was in that certain position, she was actually losing there because Bennett was landing the harder shots. And then when Bennett got the fight to where she wanted it to be, which was on the ground, she was obviously winning there as well, and she got on top and she landed some good shots. And it was the last 70-ish seconds of the first round, last 90-ish seconds of the second round, and then for a good period in the middle-ish of the third round, Bennett got the fight to the ground in those 3 periods. And like, if there was any question of how close it was on the feet, which I didn't necessarily think it was, Bennett took all of that away by taking it to the ground, and not just taking it to the ground, but winning there and landing some good shots there. So look, it's the type of fight that I think if Justine Kish was to win it and kind of dispel that loss that she had the last time, it's probably a title shot next for her. When you beat Ilima-Lei MacFarlane in Bellator, it means a lot. She is the golden girl over there, and obviously, are they doing the Velasquez and Liz Carmouche rematch? Now, I spoke at the start of this about probably not doing rematches of Bellator, and they're good for not doing it. But that's the one with the weird finish that I think it probably should be a rematch, if we're being honest. And this is another rematch here, but this kind of one makes sense after the Ilima-Lei fight. Kish, if she wins this fight, she's probably right there, but she is only 1-1 still in the promotion. I think I've always liked Justine Kish, honestly. I don't know, she went through a very rough patch in the UFC, but she's won some good fights back in the day, beating Nina Nunes, I almost called her Handa Marcos there in full Brazil, but Ashley Oder and others as well. Okay, she lost to the likes of Tracy Cortez, which is a loss that's probably a split decision loss. It's probably looking better now considering where Tracy Cortez is at the moment in her career. So it's a big fight for both of them. Honestly, after watching the first fight, I find, even though I like Kish and I think they would like to push her, I find it very hard to see how she's going to win. I actually read an article, I think it was over in MMA Mania, where someone did an interview with Kish, and she was talking about how she never got started in the fight, and it turned into one of those fights where not really much happened. And then I went to watch the fight after I read it, and I was like, is that really true? I don't think that really happened the way she's kind of saying it. So I think if that is her thoughts after the fight, and if that's the way she's treating it, she probably is going to lose again, if we're being honest. You have to be very, very honest with yourself after a fight like that. And if she isn't, I think she'll probably lose again. So a big fight there. And look, Deanna Bennett, for her side of it then, she's probably at the stage of her career as well where she's getting towards the title. She hasn't fought since that fight back at the start of the year. No, she has lost to Liz Carmouche, who is the champion as well. She'll need to put a few wins together now. She has beaten Lara and now Kish as well. So if she could put 3 wins in a row together, maybe she will get back in there. But it's tough as well, having lost to the champ at the moment. But as we said, maybe that rematch will happen. Then we get to the main card, and it's an interesting main card. Austin Vanderford is on it. He was due to fight Anthony Adams, but that fight has been changed up literally just before I came to record this. He's fighting Aaron Jeffrey now, who people might know mostly from, I suppose, his I would know anyway, from the Cauley fight. I watched a good bit of Cauley if they fought in the Contender Series. He's one of these guys that he's big power, he's good finisher, 8 wins by a KO, 1 by submission, only 3 decisions in his 12 fight winning career, 12 wins and 3 losses, 15 fight career I should say. At 25 years of age now, it's a big opportunity for him against someone like Austin Vanderford, and for Austin Vanderford himself, it's also an interesting one. His last fight, I was at it. It was the Gegard Mousasi fight here in Ireland back in it was only February. It feels like it was a lot longer than that. And he was on a great run before that. Beat Fabian Edwards and others as well. And it was a close fight, that one. I thought it was more controversial, honestly, of a decision than maybe most people. But I'm that judging nerd that everyone hates, so I'll leave that where it is. But it's a big fight for Vanderford as well, because he had all this hype. He was 10-11-0, and then he gets blown out of there in 85 seconds. Now I believe he got a stinger in that fight, and he was kind of injured, and it was unfortunate maybe more than anything else. But this is a big fight for him to bounce back on. So definitely keep an eye on this and see how this one goes. Ilima-Lei MacFarlane is also on this card, and she's fighting against Bruna Ellen. And, I read this week about Ilima-Lei talking about this being one of her last fights, maybe, and you can always take that with a pinch of salt, I suppose, especially when someone's 32 years of age and she's a big draw for the company and everything like that. But I spoke about her losing to Justine Kish. After losing to Juliana Velasquez before that, and the Kish fight was kind of, I suppose, supposed to be a setup fight for it. But Ilima-Lei is a very good fighter, but she was probably a tad overrated in terms of being at the top of that division when there's like, I think Juliana Velasquez is an absolutely fantastic fighter. Liz Carmouche is a warrior, been around for absolutely years, and I just thought both of them were probably primed to take her position as champion. Now that seems a bit harsh, and I'm not saying Ilima-Lei is a bad fighter or anything like that, but when you have someone like Velasquez there, she was never going to stay as champion in my opinion. And now, I haven't said that she's some good wins. She's beaten Emily Ducote and Valerie Retorno and others as well. So, as I said, no mug at all. And this fight against Bruna Ellen is an interesting one as well. You know, Bruna's 2-2 in her Bellator career. No, sorry, she's one of a few more than that. She's 4-3, is that it? in her Bellator career, 2-2 in her last 4 though. You know, a lot of decisions, a couple of split decisions in there. Her last 7 in a row have all been by decision. So it will probably be another close decision here, you would have to say, in this one. We'll see how it'll go, but a massive fight, I think, for Bellator, and a massive fight for Ilima-Lei MacFarlane as well. We'll see what she does after it. We'll see what that decision is, but I think Bellator is better with Ilima-Lei in it. I think she's a great character. She's a lovely person. She does great things in Hawaii. When it goes there, it's different. It's brilliant. And I wouldn't like to see her retire, honestly. I would like to see her keep going. I think if she wins here, hopefully that will happen. We have a couple of big heavyweight fights then. Big meaty men slapping meat here in the heavyweight division. We've Sowma and Gokhan Saricam first of all. Sowma is one of those guys who kind of waits and waits and waits and waits, and he'll either land that big shot and knock you out, or he won't, and he'll probably lose a decision. You know, his last 2 fights in a row, last 2 losses in a row, Devion Franklin via split decision, Tyrell Fortune via decision as well, and obviously he lost in his his pro debut back years ago to Steve Mowry, who we'll talk about in a minute. But he has, he's beaten, it was a finger injury against Vitaly Minikov and Ronnie Marks as well in quick fashion, but I can't help but think against a guy like Gokhan Saricam, he'll be forced to fight maybe more than he normally is. Like, Saricam won a unanimous decision over Kirill Selidnikov last time out, but having watched him fight in Dublin a couple of times and get big knockouts against guys who are not great, if we're being honest, but seeing that just the big meaty man slapping meat type of thing, here's a massive man, and I think it's going to be very, very tough to avoid him when he comes at you and when he throws big shots. Now, the Selidnikov fight maybe wasn't as much that as previous fights, and we're talking about an uptake in ability there in terms of his opponents, but yeah, I think it's an interesting fight. Like, this is, I think, by far the biggest test for him in his career. Like, it's Saricam. A lot of people talked about, him not maybe getting the toughest matchups and having a little bit of a problem with that. But then, the Selidnikov even, fight was a good fight. He's been around fighting lots of guys. He fought fucking Sergei Pavlovich and, Fabio Maldonado even last time out. I'm looking here. He's fought Chris Bennett and Paul Buentello back in the day. He's been around and done it and seen it in all parts of the world. So that was a good test, and I think this is an even bigger test as well against Sowma. Like, Sowma is the type of guy in that Bellator heavyweight division. If he hangs around long enough, he'd probably end up getting a title shot at some stage, and if there's something could click for him, I think he could be a very, very good fighter. I'm still not sure with Saricam. I'm still, or Saricam even, I'm still not really sure with him, but I'll probably pick him to win this. I think he'd probably land a big shot and get a knockout. It's either going to be probably a boring decision in terms of not leader lad really landing that much throughout it, or someone will land that one big shot and knock him out, and if you're a fan there, you're probably hoping for that. The other heavyweight fight then is a brilliant fight. Valentin Moldavsky versus Steve Mowry. Moldavsky is the guy I mentioned earlier, who was the ex-champion, went on an unbelievable run in Bellator to get to the title. Beating the likes of Linton Vassell and Ryan Nelson, Tim Johnson. and others before he lost to Ryan Bader. You know, he's a win over Carl Albrechtsen as well back a few years ago. But I suppose, you know, the biggest issue with him is if you look at his last few fights, Bader, decision loss, Johnson, decision win, Nelson, decision win, Ayala, decision win, Vassell, decision win. Okay, he beat Ernest James by TKO, but a decision before that as well, and then another decision, all the way back to 2016. So only one fight in the last 6 years has finished inside the distance for a heavyweight. That's not great. You know, that's not great. And I think that's maybe what people saw in Moldavsky, and maybe that's a little bit unfair, but that is, you know, that is the truth of it, as the flies come around here. Whereas Mauri is the opposite to that, you know. Never went to a decision in his 10 fights in his career, 4 KOs, 6 submissions, 6'8" tall, 238 pounds. And this guy is seemingly the future of heavyweight MMA, but he's probably fighting against, if not, you know, Ryan Bader is the best heavyweight in the division without a shadow of a doubt, but probably the second best, you know. And this is a massive test for him. He beat Raheem Cleveland last time out, who's a good fighter and a good athlete and can hit hard. And he beat Gokhan Saricam. You know, he beat Sowma as well a few fights ago. You know, he's been a pro since 2016. He hasn't had, I suppose, a lot of fights, but he hasn't fought yet in 2022. 2 fights last year, 1 fight the year before, 2 fights the year before that. Not a lot for, I suppose, an up-and-coming heavyweight who's knocking fools out and finishing them all over the place. But he looks so impressive. He's 3 wins by Kimura, 1 by key lock, 1 by arm triangle, 1 by triangle choke. He can hit hard as well. The size of him, he's big, he's very athletic for it. Now, I said this isn't the best card in the world, but God almighty, this is a great fight. Really, really looking forward to this fight. I'll pick Mauri. I'm going to pick Mauri. You know, I don't know, the betting lines aren't out yet as I record this, but I just really like him. I think he's brilliant. I think he's a brilliant fighter. Moldavsky's a brilliant fighter as well, but I'm going for Mauri in that one. And in the main event, do you know what? Because it's 5 rounds, I'm grand with this being the main event, but I'm not the biggest fan of 5-round main events. I won't lie, for all of them anyway. I think we pick and choose, but I'd rather see a 3-round Moldavsky Mauri main event than a 5-round Gracie Yamauchi. I don't think this is going to be a great fight, if I'm being honest, and the reason why is they're both very similar. Like Neiman Gracie, his name is Neiman Gracie, so have one guess at what Neiman Gracie is. 11 wins in his career, 9 wins by submission. Coyote Yamauchi, 27 wins in his career, 21 wins by submission. So these guys are submission artists. Yamauchi is brilliant off of his back. Lovely. I watched a few of his fights. There's actually like a highlight that Bellator have up with a few of his submissions, and he has, you know, good arm bars. He's won a load of fights by rear naked choke, and it feels like he's been in Bellator forever. He's fought since 2013 in Bellator non-stop, you know. So he's been around. He's fought Ryan Couture and Daniel Weichel and Michael Chandler and many others as well. And you know, he's a good fighter. Neiman Gracie as well, and this is a welterweight as well. So Yamauchi, I was actually watching one Yamauchi fight earlier, and it was at featherweight. So he fought, you know, most of his time I think at lightweight, and now he's coming up to fight a welterweight. So that'll be interesting to see how that works out for him. Like Gracie, 6 foot tall, Yamauchi 5'10", so there's not the biggest difference. Like, although Gracie seems taller, but you know, his last fight was a similar fight, I think, to this. It was Logan Storley, who was more of obviously a wrestler, but you know, both grapplers, and it turned into a 5-round kickboxing match, with Logan Storley winning it and showing some extra good striking. But Gracie has shown before he can jab, and he's a pretty good striker himself. Well, pretty good is going overboard, but he can strike. You know, he's a better striker than me. Let's put it that way. You know, yeah. Anyway, I don't know who's going to win this fight. If I'm being honest, I would love to hit it. I would love this fight hit the ground. Just pray, everyone, if you're watching this, pray that this fight hits the ground. If you believe in that sort of thing, because if it hits the ground, this could be bananas altogether. It could be absolutely brilliant, and I hope it does, and I hope both guys go for it, and I hope there's takedowns there. Like, Yamauchi has good takedowns, and he pulls guard, and he does different things. Gracie, not so much, but when he does get to fight the ground, obviously he's brilliant there, but I think he's happier to fight on the feet these days. Yeah, look, I can't see anything but a 5-round kickboxing match here, and I think Gracie will probably jab up Yamauchi and win it. So I'll probably go for Gracie to win that. But if it goes to the ground, who knows? It's two brilliant, I'm sure, black belts gunning there against each other, and we just needed to hit there. But look, it's Yamauchi's been around the division in lightweight for years. I'm sure if the rankings were there for years, he probably would have been ranked. But coming up now, if you beat Gracie, you're right there as well. Obviously, the welterweight picture at the moment, because we've two champions, and then we've Jason Jackson, an obvious number one contender. There's probably no one getting a title shot for the next year at least. So I don't know what the outcome of this is going to be. That's probably why it's an odd fight to be the main eventer. But look, that's the reality of it, and we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I'll go for Gracie there to win the decision. All right, I will leave it there. I kind of talked myself into it being a better card than maybe I said at the start. But anyway, we will look forward to it, and let me know what you think. Let me know your pick. Let me know your pick for the Yamauchi Gracie fight, and also let me know your pick in the comment section below for the Moldavsky versus Maori fight. Those are the two ones I'm kind of, iffy about who I think will win, honestly. But yeah, let me know what you think anyway in the comment section here on YouTube. If you're listening on Spotify or any of your podcast apps, please give us, thumbs up, please subscribe and all of that. And if you want to watch on YouTube, obviously head over there. And if you're watching on YouTube and you want to get it in the mornings or whatever, going out to work to listen to these podcasts, the Sheehan Show all the time, please subscribe on your podcast apps. Just look up, I think it's Sherdog Podcast Network. If you look that up, you'll find it there in your podcast apps, and you will be able to subscribe to the Sheehan Show, Sheehan and Duffy, and all the other great stuff there as well. 3 Sheehan shows every single week. So tune in. Appreciate everyone listening and watching today. My name is Sean Sheehan for Sherdog.com, and I'll see you all next time.